The show is supported by you, our listener. Stick around until a little bit later to learn more about that. This is Cup of Go for June 20, 2025. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Jonathan Hall.
And I'm Shai Ahmad.
Hi, Shai. It's been a while.
Hey. I'm very happy to have you back on the show. It's so difficult to do it on my own.
Yes.
My appreciation for you doing it yourself in the past has increased.
I've only done it once, and that will be the last time.
You know what? I think I could. I have like once a year. You have a once a year ticket to be like, oh, I can make it do it on your own. Yeah, we have a pretty cool episode. We combed through the proposals, and there wasn't anything super critical. So we have some more conversations today, and an interview with Redowan. You might remember we mentioned his DI blog post a while ago.
Oh yeah. This blog post comes from Redowan Delowar. It is called "You Probably Don't Need a DI Framework," and I have to say I was very happy to read this, not because of the content per se or the opinion it expresses, but because it explained to me what a DI framework does in Go. I've been wondering this for a long time because I've never used one. And I do agree with the conclusion, that aside now, I do agree with the conclusion that you don't need one. I've never used one, therefore I don't, and I do dependency injection all the time.
So we'll be talking to him at the interview portion of the show. But I want to start with the 125 RC1 has been released.
Woohoo!
RC stands for Release Candidate. We mentioned this like every 6 months or so, because every 6 months or so there's a new major version. But what does Release Candidate mean?
Well, it means that as far as we know, as far as the Go team knows, this is ready to be released. But there's certainly a chance that they're missing something and where they want it to be tested. So if they find a showstopper, then RC2 will be released after they fix that showstopper. If no showstoppers are found, then this will eventually become Go 1.25.0.
And the cool thing here is how they're just like, use it, put it in the production load test and the unit test. Like nobody's suggesting put it in production yet.
Yeah.
If you already have Go installed, there's a very easy way to install this specific version with a Go directive. So it's Go install, and then you point it at like the latest version of 125 RC1, and then you do like a Go 125 RC1 download, and you got it. Now, in the notes from Cherry and Carlos, they're like, to find out what changed in Go 125, read the draft release notes, right? Mm-hmm. Which is usually where, like, I don't know, 2 years ago, if you asked me, where do you know what's new in Go, in the new version, that's where I would go, right? Mm-hmm. And it mentions things we talked about, like the container-aware Go Max procs and the T garbage collector, things we actually mentioned on the show in depth, which is why I feel comfortable skimming over them. And some things we missed, like the unhandled panics.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not a huge deal. The main thing I'm pointing towards and hinting towards, Anton, is that Anton didn't release his version of the Go release notes yet. The actually useful ones with the examples.
The interactive one, yeah.
Yeah, so we had Anton on the show, actually.
My name is Anton. I do some open source stuff, and I write interactive, maybe I can call them guides or books, and interactive articles on my blog. That's mostly what I do in my free time. So that's it.
So I've been using this. I don't know. Have you been using these release notes instead of the official ones?
I wouldn't say instead of, but in addition to sometimes, yes.
I don't know. I would say instead of. It's much easier for me to read this than the official Go blog. And 125 hasn't been released yet. So you'll have to stick just with one source of news about the changes. Actually, two, because we also tell you about it. Right? How does running any RC worked out for you in the past?
I haven't done it a whole lot, but I've never found a bug by doing it. So
yeah, that's the same for me. Like I really always hope to find the problem and be like the one hero that's like, oh, here's the crazy compiler bug, but it just works for me. I guess I don't do anything too out of the ordinary with Go yet. So RC 125 RC1. I guess this is a pretty easy way to try to contribute to the Go community. Just run it and see if it works.
I'm curious if there's anything in 125 in particular you're looking forward to, Shai.
I'm actually looking forward to. It's kind of weird to say about the garbage collector.
Okay.
But I'm excited about the experiment, like making the language better, just behind the scenes for me, and just making everything faster is the sort of silent maintenance work that I'm very excited about. I like the new vet analyzers that will replace all the host port for like constructing addresses, because that's a code review comment I always give people. They're like, hey, you need to use net.join host port because this will not work in IPv6. Now it's built into vet. And obviously all the, there's a lot of small changes that I'm pretty sure I won't notice until I have to use them. This version is not like groundbreaking, you know what I mean? Generics introduced or anything like that. At least not that I'm aware of.
I feel like the last maybe 3 or 4 versions have had bigger changes. Introduction of slog and new testing things. And I don't remember what they all were, but I do feel like this is a fairly low key upgrade. Yeah. Having said that, though, the one thing I am excited about for this version is the introduction of testing sync test, which was already in 124 as an experiment. That experimental flag is being removed. It's going full-fledged in 1.25 with just a couple minor changes. So that's pretty cool. It's something I will use. I won't use it all the time, but there's been at least once or twice in the last 6 months. I was like, I wish I could use that, but I don't want to enable experiments. So it'll be a nice thing to have that.
Yeah, and there's a ton of changes in crypto,
of course,
including the FIPS mode, which we mentioned, which I'm not excited about because I'm not implementing any government level applications.
I'm glad it's there, but it won't affect me personally.
Yes, but I am excited that it is there because it makes proposing Go as a backend language in enterprise context, especially B2B enterprise context, much stronger. Like, there's usually the argument of, let's use some annoying dynamic language like Python or TypeScript because we could move fast. And here's like, okay, but there's going to be like a 9-month-long project 2 years from now making our TypeScript app FIPS compliant so we can sell to the government, like OpenAI is selling to the government right now. They just closed a huge deal. I just saw it on the news this morning. And like, if you use the Go, we just get it built in, like no problem. So I don't know. I am excited about the concept of having this argument when I debate whether to use Go or not in future endeavors. Just arming me with a bit more ammunition to fight the good fight. Cool. So that's 125. That's what I'm excited about. I agree with you that it's less groundbreaking and I think that's good. Like you need some releases that are just like improvements. You can't always do the new things.
All right. As you said, we're going to be a little more discussion-y today than we often are. I found a post. I found it on Reddit, but it's a regular blog post, so we can find it other places too, called Go Should Be More Opinionated. And I thought this is a little bit of an interesting take. One of the perks of being a Go developer expert is the incredible opportunities it provides. A few weeks ago, I, the author of the post, had the opportunity to meet Robert Gressimir and Mark Doherty, dev advocate for the Go team. And at happy hour at Google I.O., Mark asked me and others from Korea for feedback, and his response was that he didn't have any specific feedback, but he thought Go should be more opinionated about the application layout. Which at first it said the title is Go should be more opinionated. I'm like, maybe that's true. And then here it's Go should be more opinionated about the application layout. And I'm like, maybe that's true, but like I have very different ideas about what that means versus the title. Anyway, sure. I thought it was an interesting opinion. And I can't decide if I agree or not. But the TLDR, it's not a long post. You could read it in the time I'm talking about it, really. But the TLDR is that the author believes that Go should have stronger opinions about the structure, the file layout of a Go project. And we've talked very briefly about this long ago. I don't even remember what episode it was in because we were talking about some other blog post probably. I'm kind of curious, though, Shai, what you think about this. Like, is it nice that sort of the sky's the limit with in terms of your project layout, or or is something more structured called for?
I don't think it's nice. I think it's actually toil, like unnecessarily toil.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the sort of thing that I don't want to waste my time thinking about. If objectively, there isn't one project layout that's perfect because not all projects are the same.
Right.
I'll say that. So to get that out of the way. But, like if I want a project with a few libraries and the libraries are 100% internal to my company, but I want them maintained by different teams and I want different release cadences and I need to be able to release them separately. These are like my requirements. And then my wants are, I want this to be in a monorepo. I want this, I need like these build steps to happen before it. I don't know, protobuf compilation and REST API verification and go generate, right? Like here are a few build steps I want to configure ahead of time. I sort of know how I would structure that app now. And on the other end, if you're developing like a Cobra application, right? Cobra has its own project layout for stuff, right? Because it has commands and things like that. I don't want to waste time thinking about this stuff. And also I want it to be very simple. Like I don't want a ton of directories that have a ton of hidden meaning or whatever. Like the simpler, the better. I haven't thought about it too much because I've been working in frameworks that solve it for me. Like with Python, I've been using UV and you just do UV in it and it starts the whole thing for you and you don't question. Like here's the source directory, here's the test directory, and that's just how you work. And even more structured in Nest.js, you have like, okay, so every directory is a module and every module has these files next to it. And if you don't name the directories exactly as the framework expects, it just doesn't work. Or Next.js front-end application, that's even worse. The paths are part of the URL, like you can't escape it. On the one hand, it's annoying because I have to like remember what the framework expects. But on the other hand, I don't spend a lot of time like thinking or arguing with my team, is this laid out correctly or not? So when you're talking about functional project layouts, things that make the project work, the simpler, the better. We're talking about thinking about how the layout actually impacts like binary, the delivery. Like I want this to be separate library or I want this to be whatever. I think that more examples could be better. I've never, for example, been able to make go.work work on the first Go.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
These things tend to be difficult. And there is a bit too much freedom here. And I wish that like Go was more opinionated about it. But Go is it's a lot of things. But one thing is for sure, it works in Google, right? So they sort of expect you to behave like Google and invest a ton of time into extra build tooling to make stuff work.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm a little torn though. Like, is it the place for the language to have that opinion, or is that a place for a framework? And then, of course, that leads to the second question of, wait, don't we hate frameworks in Go? So if we're going to eschew frameworks, don't we need an alternative to answer these sort of questions for us? I don't have a good answer. So I definitely appreciate the opinionated, structure. On the other hand, I can't imagine a single structure to rule them all that would work for all types of Go applications. So yeah, I don't know. I sympathize with the author. I don't know if Go language is the place for those opinions to exist, but maybe it is. I don't know.
There's a blog post about how to do structured logging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Structured logging with slog. It's in the standard library. If you go to the Go dev blog, you can find it, right?
Yeah.
There is how to do reproducible Go tool chains, right? Although you could have done that with a separate tool, a shell script and your own thing, right?
Maybe.
There is how to do a lot of things. And the project templates thing is experimenting with project templates, which is with the go new command, right? And they've written like 2 templates to get you started. But it definitely feels like, if you want to do logging, this is how the Go team tells you to do logging. But if you want a project template, here's a project and here's a command and here's a few easy templates to get you started that aren't really that deep. And in the comments to that blog post, also someone says like, if the template generates something and then you have to fix, like you run Golang CI lint on it with your config and then you have to fix 5 things, it's much harder to go back and fix the template. Like if you want to do a structural improvement or some refactoring, when you look at the generated code, understanding what to fix in the template based on that is way harder. It's sort of like, I think people call it meta coding or something like that. So these templates they're great in theory, but they're actually also super hard to maintain. So I don't know, there is benefit, but there is also cost.
Of course, yeah.
So I don't know how great it would be. Maybe an area where AI could actually be useful.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like the sort of thing, right? Look at 10 examples that how people have used the template and then improve the template. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just being hopeful.
Well, speaking of being hopeful, I think you have a topic to talk about that's a little bit in the same vein as hopiness.
You want to try a different? I know you're tired, but I know you have something better in you.
I don't.
So, project templates, cool. One final blog post I want to share is from kmcd.dev. I just looked at that domain for a second. I was like, oh, it's like XKCD. HTTP query and Go. It's a pretty short blog post. If you're into like networking and Go, you should just try and read it. But the premise is very interesting. We have a get and post, right? In HTTP.
Yeah.
What's get used for? Like if you had to explain it in a sentence.
It's to fetch a document or an object.
Okay, and post.
Everything else.
So I think that the concept is you use get for like simple queries to fetch a document on the web. Mm-hmm. You use post to theoretically imply something that would change. That's why it's called get. You get something, and post. You post something for the server to use. But get isn't great for complex data retrieval. Anybody who's tried to like wang jangle a deeply nested structure into the URL knows it, right? You try to shove like a complicated nest of and or filters and also the ordering of the table.
Or even just a simple list of 1,000 different IDs you want to fetch.
Yeah, because there is a limit on the length of the URL, right?
Right.
It does have a practical length limit. I think it's somewhere around 2,000 or 8,000 characters, something like that.
I think it depends a lot on the browser and the servers and caches and proxies involved too. But yeah, 2,000.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like most modern servers 8,000, but all you need is like one old version of Nginx running somewhere along the chain, and you're like, oh, it's 2,000 actually. I use, by the way, for get query parameters to try to make it nice, something called QS. To like it's a simple npm library that just like allows you to create the nested object. So the URL looks kind of funky, to be honest. It has a lot of like square brackets and it looks kind of funky. But in terms of code, it's nice because you like serialize and deserialize the object. But then it turns out to be really long. And I am afraid of running into the length limit problem, actually. KMCD here proposes a new method, query, which is like tries to bridge the gap between the use of get and post. The input is in the body, not in the URI. But unlike post, these are safe and idempotent. So you can do like a get with caching and automatic retries, which I wouldn't want to do with a post request. Like if I had to implement a get using a post just because of length limits, then suddenly and you want to do like an automatic retry or cache the result, right? That with get, these are things you normally can do, right?
Right.
But with post, you don't want to cache the result. Doesn't make sense because you shouldn't have results. But this specific post request is for getting data because the filter was getting too long. So this is like a super real problem. And Kevin goes here into like implementation of this server side in Go. And pretty funnily enough, it's like, congratulations, we made an API with an endpoint no browser can use. Because it uses like the query, which it doesn't exist. And then like calls it and creates this like clear separation. I think this is a really good idea. And there is a draft with like official draft by the IETF. So, it might actually become a thing. I wonder if we'll see more support. This is a real thing that's happening and it might get more support in the future. I wonder if Go Net HTTP library might support it in the future. If you're interested in that sort of stuff, just read the blog post. Not that long. And again, a good chance to recommend KMCD's entire thing. Like Kevin has a ton of cool stuff going on. He has a daily word game. He has tons of stuff on Protobuf, gRPC we've mentioned on the show in the past. And he even has daily prompts he's sharing, which are cool, like thought experiments. Although I haven't seen one in a while, so maybe it's not that daily.
I have to wonder, why not just modify get to accept a body? Why do we need a new verb?
I think with the current verb, it's so overloaded. But most servers won't let you pass a body with get. They'll like
but they
the body.
don't let you pass a query either. So like, is it really any different to expand the get semantics versus adding a new verb? Maybe it's just clearer, but like logically, it seems like a get with a body would solve the same problem.
I think get doesn't carry get will not carry a payload, even if the spec would change. At this point, it's like, I think it's called Hiram's law. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That all consumers depend on this implicit interface, even if they change the interface. This is a law already. This is like set in stone. The servers will not accept a payload. And if someone tries to pass payloads and get, they might get stopped by like enterprise firewalls that use this as a rule to detect malware trying to leak stuff. Like, this is already common law. So people can't bypass it, even if they change the spec. It's much easier to expand the spec than change it, I feel.
That's probably a big part of it.
I wouldn't, like, if I were to implement, we used to work at a network microsegmentation company, like a firewall company. If you ask me off the top of my head, the top like 10 rules, probably slotting in at number 7 is don't have any payloads in HTTP things that shouldn't have payloads. Just based on like experience of how malware works. Cool. Let's jump to a quick ad break. Like Jonathan mentioned at the top of the show, this show is supported by you. If you want to help us cover the cost of the show, which include hosting and editing and our time, please do so on Patreon. If you want to find the links to the Patreon or the swag store or our Slack channel or past episodes or anything else, you can find us at cupago.dev on the web. That's our site. You can also email us at news@cupago.dev. That is news@cupago.dev. If you want to help support the show in other ways, getting it to more people is the best way to do it. Leaving a review on like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or writing a blog about us on your site, or mentioning us on LinkedIn or the internal company Slack. That would be super cool. Just getting it to more people. We've had a ton of like record-breaking statistics. I know you like to nerd out about this stuff, about the like analytics of the show, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Have you seen the most recent achievement we've gotten?
Was it a certain number of countries, maybe?
It was a certain number of downloads. A single episode had 2,000 downloads.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that was the episode from February with Carlos Becker.
Yeah,
the author of Go Releaser. Yeah, so that's our best downloaded episode ever. That's awesome.
I guess that's his fault, maybe. I don't know.
Thank you, Carlos. Come back on, please. Give us some more listeners.
And by the way, closely behind it is a very recent episode. Like the February episode had some time to cook. It's been like 5 months. But the next one after it is the Ian episode.
Yeah.
And with Kevin Hoffman, where we talked about empathy and the joy of vlogging, which is from like May. So I don't know. The show's been doing really good recently, and it's mostly because people tell other people about it. So please continue doing that. One other programming note, I'll be traveling next week. I'm going to visit family in Washington. So if you want to do the show together with Jonathan, reach out to Jonathan on our Slack and try to replace me. It's pretty easy, to be honest. I don't know that much about Go, so it should be pretty simple.
Well, I think that's it for the ad break. I don't think we forgot anything, but we do have a great interview coming up.
Yeah, and we're skipping the lightning round today to get to listening to our interview with Redowan.
There it is.
So stick around for that. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, Shai.
Would you say I'm dependable?
Well, you were a couple minutes late to this call, but you did show up.
That's true. But generally, would you define me as dependable?
Generally, yes.
But what if you needed to like bring a different co-host? You have to like inject some other dependency.
Yeah. I suppose I'd need to come up with some sort of framework to handle that for me.
Yeah, that would be kind of difficult. I wish we had someone on the call who was an expert on such matters who could help us. Oh, hey, Red One.
Hello.
Welcome to the call. Welcome to the show.
All of my intros are bad, but that was one of the worst.
Well, they just get worse every time. So
Next week, this will no longer be the worst.
That's great. That's like the Simpsons thing. It's the worst day of your life. No, it's the worst day of your life so far. Redwan, how about you introduce yourself to the people?
Hey, I'm Redowan. I'm currently working at Volt, which is kind of like a European sister concern of DoorDash in the US. So yeah, I've been doing open source for a long time and working here for around like 2 years. And I primarily work with Go. So do a lot of Go, lots of like distributed systems, database, data modeling, data engineering, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm excited to be on the show. I am a longtime listener, if you could say so, for a podcast that's been out for 2 years. So yeah, from the get-go, I guess.
Cool. I assume that actually most podcasts only have one episode and then they quit, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So on the statistics, 2 years is probably pretty good.
Yep.
I have to admit that I was like one of the top users of Volt. So I'm happy to see like someone behind the scenes because it's pretty popular in Israel. And it also has like a deal. It had a deal with my workplace. So I would like get free lunch from Volt every day. Not free, but you know what I mean? Like included.
Cool. Yeah. Israel is one of the bigger market of like Volt. So yep.
Yeah. People love to order food. You see them. But usually the effect you see, it's funny to talk about the backend because I don't know if people who have like DoorDash or Wolt or all these sorts of companies in their cities know, the main effect is very visible that you have like guys on bikes crossing red lights and like cutting you off, trying to get a little faster. So now we'll see which laws are being broken on the back end to get my food to me in like 30 minutes or less.
Yep.
So the way we got to talking is your blog post about dependency injection frameworks, which we mentioned like at the top of the episode. For listeners who like missed that episode or just I think in general, a refresher would be helpful. What is that blog post about?
Okay, yeah. So I kind of like recently wrote a blog post regarding how in Go you actually probably don't need a dependency injection framework. And it actually got a lot of traction, mostly because Go is a little different from many other languages. And what happens is like people coming to Go from other languages, they often bring their practices and their habits and behaviors, which is good, which is all good. But at the same time, some of them actually don't fit very well. And DI is one of my pet peeves. And while working in like larger code bases, what I have seen is like people sometimes bring DI frameworks, like these sort of like DI frameworks that helps at the beginning because it kind of like helps you wear up things very fast. But at the same time, as the code base starts growing larger, DI frameworks causes a lot of like frustration, at least for me. Like there has been multiple cases where there was a bug, and because the way the DI framework works in Go, you don't get like a compile time error, and it just turns into a runtime error. So if you are in like a large distributed system and you don't get compile time error, like the whole turnaround period for like a simple bug can be pretty long. Like if you have like 10 services that you need to deploy, and one of them has this bug that you could have caught in compile time, now you have like 20 minutes of like a turnaround time because the whole CI needs to run and all that shenanigan, and you have to start all over again. So it came from a place of a bit of frustration. It's like, okay, why are we bringing in all these like large DI frameworks? And I tried to understand the whole thing. And I have used like pretty much all of them in like larger code bases. So when I wrote that thing, it's like, okay, probably you might not need that. You could probably like get away without one. So that was the stance of the blog post. It's not that, hey, you should not use one at all or something like that. You probably could have like avoided one.
So what is it about Go that makes it different that a DI framework might be appropriate in, I don't know, some other language, but it's not in Go? What's the difference?
Yeah, so one of the first, like the simplest thing I would like answer is Go has a lot of first class properties. Like you can actually pass around functions, which you cannot do in many other languages, which makes your life pretty easy. Like if you need to initialize something, just pass a function and call that function inside another function, and it's fine. And in languages where you need to create an object and call like a methodology, you might need some sort of like wearing things where you have these like heavy objects that you need to initialize somewhere, and then you need to call some method on that in order for the whole thing to work. But in Go, in most cases, you could just like pass it, like pass the whole thing, create your struct. Like in Go, we have this convention where we usually create like a construction function, which is like a new, and then you return the object that you want to create. You could create functions like that for all of your objects, and you can like just pass around. Like even if you're, and let's say like the main function where you start everything up, if there is a function that takes like 20 parameters, that's not a problem. That is really not a problem. And the biggest reason why oftentimes people like use DI frameworks is because, this becomes too unwinding. But what I have seen, at least, is like it's not a big deal. Like, okay, this function takes in 20 parameters, which is fine. You just pass them around explicitly, and if something is missing, then you get like a compile time error. That was the reason why I kind of like wrote the whole thing. Yeah.
The places where I've seen people bring in DI frameworks are like developers that don't know really enough about programming. They don't have like tens of years of experience behind them to have seen the whole thing. They know just enough to be dangerous, like 4 years experience area.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, someone taught me. I got a code review once that functions shouldn't have too many parameters, and it was linked to clean code. So functions shouldn't have more than 3 parameters. So I'll bring in a DI framework to do the thing for me, and now my code is air quotes clean, right?
Yeah.
But or the other way around, where they're like, okay, I won't use a framework because I think it really overcomplicates things, because I got a code review comment once that, like, don't bring in dependencies unless they're absolutely necessary, right? But then they don't separate their, like, all the constructors and all the bootstrap of the application and all the startup into one like file and one function that's called bootstrap that has all these things. And then, suddenly for some reason, your configuration is being initialized with 3 parameters inside your logger and all these sorts of weird things, instead of initializing them all in order and passing them in a big graph creation sort of function that doesn't have any business logic. It's just wiring up all the things. It's there was a developer. I don't know if I want to call them out by name, but I might. Their name is Gennady. One of the best developers I ever worked with. They're behind like a huge gaming studio today. They taught me exactly this. Like 50% of the problems is because people mix up graph creation and business logic, and you always have to separate it. It was like a huge design thing. He taught me and stuck with me since. But I wonder what, again, in other languages, because this is true in, I don't know, even in Python, like having a 20 parameter function can happen. But maybe you don't have pointers. Maybe you can't pass things by reference. Maybe it's just most of the code looks differently. Like I'm wondering what makes other languages more prone to using these frameworks.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like Python is probably like the right language to like pick on this, because like in Python also, you most likely like don't need a DI framework. In most cases, you could like get away with it because there is also like these first class functions and whatnot. All of these things you actually don't need. But what happens is like there are languages like, for example, in Java, there is a very common, it's just a custom, and not only custom, and there are very valid reasons behind why they oftentimes use like dependency injection frameworks. It's mostly, sometimes it can be like lack of like first class functions, like there isn't one. And at the same time, it's also about a bit of like culture, because if you are dropped into a code base that is like large enough and there is a DI framework already in place, it's extremely rare where you would try to say that, I'm just gonna like wear up everything by hand. It just doesn't make any sense. Like if it is already there, just leave it be. And also another language is like also, it's very similar in like Kotlin. People bring in like dependency injection frameworks, and there are sometimes valid reasons, sometimes there isn't. And in Go, I would say there is a talk by Uber. I think it came out around like 7 or 8 years ago, where they kind of like show that, okay, why they're using something like UberFX. And UberFX is like their flagship DI framework, and that uses something called dig underneath. And there is a very valid reasoning behind them. It's like what they kind of like told in that talk is that they have like hundreds of microservices, like 1500s or something, at least like 6-7 years ago. I'm not even sure like how many it is now. And they had like this sort of like valid use case of like, okay, we have this and all of the services need to look the same. So, and we have a lot of junior engineers working in our team, and we want to codify the graph creation so that, because like when you are hand rolling your own graph creation, as you have said, is like depending on your experiences. What I have also seen is like hand rolling graph creation can get messy. When, for example, is like in Go, it's very common to use like init functions, and when you have like a bunch of those, it's really hard to understand, okay, which file imports which one and how all of this init is actually coming into place. So that makes things hard. So what happens is like people leave out all of these global variables in different places. And as a solution, sometimes some people actually brings in like, hey, if you had used a DI framework, this wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have like all of these global variables like laid around in like different places. So yeah, but at the same time, it's like if you know that, okay, you are only going to wear up all of this global thing in your main file, and otherwise you are not going to use globals, and you have that discipline in that case, yeah, you could probably get away without one.
One thing that's interesting is that I can't fathom why you would need like 1,000 or 4,000 microservices for like a cab renting application.
Okay. They have their reasons.
I'm sure they do, but at this point, it might also be like this is how we do things. Like if it works for them, great. I don't know what Uber financials look like, and I'm happy for it because it's cool tech. Like it's definitely cool. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah,
and you know what? I use it. It works. So no, if it didn't work as well, then I would be pissed. But I use the app and the app works. So no complaints.
Yeah, it's basically a solution to a social problem, not like a technical problem like microservices. Like when you have like 5,000 engineers working on something, you want them to be empowered. So in Uber, at least what I have heard from some of my coworkers who have worked there previously is like, you can just basically go ahead and like start a new service and start working, and they have their deployment pipeline, and it's very empowered. But at the same time, like when everyone can create all of these services and like deploy that, sure, you will have like all of huge amount of like services. So yeah, it's kind of like a culture. Like how do you make 4,000, 5,000 engineers work on a same idea? So it's like breaking them down into like separate services. So yeah, it's a solution for completely social problem.
Well, thanks for the primer on DI and how it interacts with Go. Let's step back a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about what else you do. I'm sure that DI isn't the only thing you concern yourself with. What interesting problems have you been solving lately? What do you work on these days?
Okay, yeah. So I primarily work as a backend engineer, and I work with distributed systems. And that's a very like an umbrella term. If I drill down, currently I'm working at in the database team where we are building like a service in front of that is going to be backed by Cassandra, and that's going to solve some of the database scalability problems that we have had inside, because Wolt and DoorDash both are like growing at an incredibly faster rate, and we need better database solutions and whatnot. So yeah, so internally we are rethinking our backend architecture a lot, and Go kind of like is going to play a pivotal role, because at least Wolt used to be a Python shop. Like most of the backend services were written in Python. And it's a fairly recent thing where the idea is a lot of them is going to be rewritten from ground up in Go for much. There are valid business cases where we kind of like need to do that. So yeah, I have been working at the database team where we are facilitating other teams so that they will be able to write Go at a faster pace, and they won't have to think about databases that much and scaling that much. It's going to be all taken care of by the platform.
I've seen in your blog, I'll put a link in the show notes to the entire blog, not just the DI thing. Like, it seems over time, recently you've done a lot of Go, and then you scroll a little back, you did a little bit of Python. Is that why you're so happy right now? Like, is that why you're smiling?
Yeah. That's a very valid thing. So I have mainly done Python, TypeScript, a little bit of Kotlin, and now writing Go. And the whole thing is like internally, at least at my current workplace, there is a major shift towards Go and lots of excitement internally, like as much as I can like reveal without saying anything that I'm not supposed to be saying. But there's a lot of excitement regarding Go all around. It's like people are writing Go. We are adopting Go at like a faster pace. Different services are getting rewritten. And yeah, Go is at this point a natural language, but at Volt, if you kind of like feel the atmosphere, it feels like, okay, we are adopting something completely new, and there's a lot of excitement around the whole thing.
It's cool that like people are excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, it would be, it's pretty rare. Like engineers tend to be excited about new tech.
Not everyone. Yes. Obviously, like not everyone. Like some people like, hey, you can't take away my decorators. Like Go doesn't have a decorator. Hey, just call a function from another function. It's like, no, but that's not as nice as something like a decorator, I would say. So yeah.
Sounds like time for another blog post to educate those fools, I guess.
Yeah. And well, it also like depends on your experiences. Like I have written quite a bit of Python over the last, I would say, 7-8 years, and even before that, I have written like TypeScript. And the whole point of me coming over to Go, because I like backend, I like distributed systems and whatnot, and writing those languages has their downsides. If you want to work at that. Like where I want to work, right? If I want to keep writing like Python, it has its downsides. And Go is not perfect, but well, it's a tiny language. It's statically linked. It has a lot of good stuff. And don't ask me because I am like a huge Go shill inside the company. So kind of like probably not the right person to say like, okay, which language is better, Go or something else, because you probably know the answer. So yeah.
And I'll just say, I'll do this shout out instead of you, but I went to the careers.world page and it seems like there are Go roles open. So if you're saying there's a lot of excitement around Go and people are looking, if you're in Helsinki or Stockholm or Estonia or Finland, all these countries that always show up on the happiness index, you know what I mean? Then it seems like there are some Go roles. Do they make you like do one day on the bike or something just to learn how the couriers work? Or did they not force you to do it? I heard a rumor that everybody who works there has to do like one day of shipping food for real customers.
Well, that's an option. Like it's not like mandatory. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But yeah, it's a fun option like many actually like choose to do. So yeah.
Jonathan, do you think you'll be good as a food courier? Like a bike-ridden food
I used
courier?
to deliver newspapers on a bicycle, so I suppose that a lot of those skills would transfer over.
Oh my God. You legitimately used to do like newspaper delivery.
Yeah, I did.
If we have listeners like born after 2000, newspapers were these things made of paper. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding, but not really. Well, awesome, man. Just before we wrap up here, if people want to find you, where do they do it?
Yeah, I had a Twitter account, but I kind of like deactivated the whole thing. But I am also in Blue Sky, which is the only one that I'm just like trying it out. And my handle is Red Nafi. All of my handle is everywhere. It's the same, like my GitHub handle and my blog. Everything has like the same handle. So Yeah, and also like I'm on LinkedIn, I guess. Like you have to be on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. You have to play the
But
game.
yeah, to play the game. Exactly. Yeah. But
Although we are like playing checkers while Jonathan is playing LinkedIn chess. He's like trolling everybody on LinkedIn.
oh wow, 40 chess.
Of course, all the links for Redowan's blog and the about page and everything are in the show notes, so you can find them. Jonathan, how about you? Reddit puffs up with the stumper question. I don't know why we call it the stumper question. It's not a stumper question anymore.
Not a stumper question. I guess we're stumped as to why it's called that. So, when you were learning Go, we didn't really talk about your history with that, but I don't know how recently you started learning Go, but who influenced you the most?
Okay, yeah, I would say in my case, I follow the development of Tailscale very closely. So all of the people there, like Brad Fitzpatrick and also David Croshaw, and I would say like they have a lot of influence on my thought, how I work, and what I do. So yeah, I would give like a huge shout out to like the Tailscale folks. Like they do incredible work with Go, and you can learn some world class engineering from their open source, like the whole Tailscale thing on like GitHub and everything, just following the issues and stuff. So yeah, I have learned over the years a lot just reading the code and like browsing stuff, and also like the blog post that David Croshaw, like recently he posted one blog post about like how he uses agents, like LLM agents, in order to develop with Go, and why Go is like a great language in order if you want to like develop with this large language model tools. And it was like an incredible post. Like I have been through it like 2 times and like shared it internally. So yeah, I would say like the Tailscale team would be my pick.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Great shout out to Tailscale as well. Yep. A lot of Go companies being highlighted. What's the name of the blog post? I want to put it in the show notes.
How I use agents. It's by David Croshaw.
I'll find it. That's enough.
Yeah,
I'll send my agent to find it.
Yeah. You can find
how
it.
I program with agents.
Yes.
Oh, I see where you take your blog's style from. The light mode, black text, no styling thing. I feel whenever I see a blog like this, I feel stupid for like investing into CSS of my site and like making it nice and whatever. Because everything looks so much more professional when it's just like HTML, no bullshit.
In my case, it's like my front end skill is shit. It's not very good. So I never invested much time there. So I just like picked up like a default Hugo theme and just like rolled with it. It does the work. It does the job. So yeah.
Maybe it's the signal you want to convey. Like, don't hire me for my front end skills.
Yeah. Most likely. Yeah. For sure.
Well, I'll put the link in the show notes as well. I actually haven't read it, so I'll definitely read it. That's a good shout out. Thanks, everyone, for joining Cup of Go this time. I have one like final question, and this one is a stumper question. Actually, you've been a long time listener of the show. Who's a better host?
Huh.
Oh shit! Like that's a hard one, but I would say like I can immediately identify Jonathan's voice from a mile. So
okay,
take it. What do you?
So if I see someone running, it might be you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna cry in the corner then. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And
Thank
listening
you
for the show for so long.
Thanks a lot.
That'll do it for this week, folks. Check us out next week as well. I know the schedule's been kind of spotty recently, and actually next week it will probably be as well. I'll talk to Jonathan about it after the show, and we'll see how we figure it out. But we really appreciate you all listening. That's it. Program exited.